Please activate the subtitles.
My name is Roger Color, and this video is going to be very quick. This is from a series of videos in which I'm not going to make a script before, so I haven't written anything before. The idea is that I speak naturally without thinking about anything, the same way I talk to my friends, without holding myself back, using contractions, slangs, whatever pops up to my head. So without any further ado, let's get started. So come with me. Come with me. Many people ask me how I learned so many different languages. I speak 7 languages, some better than others. I speak Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, French, and of course English. But the only 2 languages that I speak perfectly are English and Portuguese. I can communicate in those other languages as well, but not so perfectly because I don't really practice so much, and as I always say, if you don't use it, you lose it. I know some other languages such as German, Norwegian, Danish, Greek, among others, but I can't say that I speak these languages. I can only read texts and articles, but I've never had a conversation in these languages. Okay. The question is how I learned so many languages. It's hard to answer this question because each one of these languages I learned differently. So there isn't one answer to this question, how I learned these languages. So I guess I'll have to tell you about each one of them separately. I'll try to go straight to the point because I want this video to be really quick. I'll start telling you about how I learned Portuguese first because it was the first language I learned. And there's nothing much to say about that because, it was so natural. My mother is Brazilian and she used to speak Portuguese with me since I was a baby, so I learned it naturally. English. Again, there isn't much to tell you about that because I've never had to go to a school to learn it. I also learned English naturally, the same way I learned Portuguese, by being exposed to the language, watching cartoons in English with friends from school. I've always had friends who spoke English since I was a little child. I lived in England for a long time. I'll tell you about my life in England in a future video, because in this video I need to focus on telling you how I learned so many different languages. Well, let me tell you how I learned Spanish. When I was 16 years old, I was living in England, and then I was forced to come to Brazil because of some family issues. And then 3 days after getting here, I found a job as a teacher, and the teachers could learn a different language for free. And then I decided to take the Spanish course. So I studied from the basic to the advanced level in 1 year. I used to study Spanish for 6 hours a day. I had a student's book and a workbook. So my teacher would assign me like 3 pages for homework and I would do around 20 pages a day. I was insane. I was obsessed with this language. I really wanted to learn it. And quickly, I practiced my listening by watching Mexican soap operas. I didn't have a TV at this moment in my life, and this school had a video room with many tapes with old Mexican soap operas that teachers used in class. My favorite soap opera was La Usurpadora. Paula Bracho was a great inspiration in my life. I practiced my listening watching TV shows in Spanish. I practiced my speaking with a Mexican girl who was my teacher. She was 21 years old and very beautiful. Her name was Mercedes. Well, I'll tell you more things about Mercedes in a future video, but she helped me a lot. She really knew how to use her tongue. Her language. She knew how to use her language. I practiced my writing and my reading by doing pages and pages from workbooks. Well, Japanese. How I learned Japanese. Well, I've always been into cartoons, games, anime and manga. I've always loved the Japanese culture. When I was a kid, I used to watch Dragon Ball in Japanese, and when I was 17 years old I went back to England, and the experience of studying Spanish was so absolutely amazing that I wanted to do that again, but now with a different language. So I wanted to learn another language, desperately. So I started studying Japanese by myself. I bought a grammar book. I practiced my listening by watching anime such as Dragon Ball, Saint Seiya, Naruto and stuff like that. I didn't have anyone to practice my Japanese with, so my strategy was to talk to myself. That's when I started talking to myself. Up to this day I do that in different languages. I think it's one of the best ways to practice. And I did the same thing with Chinese and Korean. So I'm still studying Korean nowadays. I like watching those doramas and series in Korean. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone to practice Korean with, so I only talk to myself and read books. And I studied French for a whole year by myself, but I was lucky because one of my friends, when I was a teenager, was a French girl who was in England studying English, so I helped her with her English, and in exchange, she taught me French. but it was a very informal way of learning a language. We didn't have any strategy. We would just meet every day and talk in the park, and we ended up making out, yeah, and kissing, yeah, I know. But that's another story for a different video. So I've never had to really go to a school to learn any of these languages. I've always enjoyed learning. At this moment I'm studying Italian. I've never really thought too much about how I learn languages because for me it's like breathing. I just like doing that. It's a hobby for me. I'll always be studying a language. You know, it's fun. It's like playing video game or riding a bike. It's fun, you know. I don't have any single strategy to study languages, you know, like a unique technique to share with you right now. But let me think now. Let me think about what I always do. Well, I always focus on practicing the 4 skills: writing, reading, listening, and speaking. I always use repetition when I'm learning a language. I repeat the same sentence over and over again until I feel that I'm pronouncing things perfectly. I always talk to myself in the language that I'm studying at the moment. I try to interact with other people who are studying the same language in the language that I'm studying, and if possible I try to find native people to talk to me, you know, and practice. I basically immerse in the language that I'm studying at the moment. I change the language in my electronic devices. I expose myself to the language that I'm studying. I try to make it fun, you know, watching movies, series, listening to music, talking to people, reading books. Basically that's how I've always done it. So, well, there's no secret, you know. Thing is, I've always loved it. I've always loved learning different languages. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, like our page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Please join our group on Telegram and practice your English by using voice messages and text messages. If you sympathize with my channel, you can help me continue with this project by becoming a patron. Please click on the first link in the description of the video and check the rewards and benefits you can get by becoming a patron. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next class.